Today on the channel, we're going to replace this fake Floyd Rose tremolo on this Chinese Kirk Hammett Ouija board ESP. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to take this Jackson Floyd Rose tremolo. It's probably a special or something of that nature, and I'm going to put it on this Chinese ESP, fake ESP. I guess it's called a Chi-SP, a cheesy P. This is my Kirk Hammett Ouija board guitar that's been on the channel quite a bit. Recently I upgraded the pickups. I've got some Seymour Duncan, what are they called? The Black Winter Seymour Duncans that are in here. I put the covers back on the pickups to retain the Ouija board look. I've replaced the pots and the switches in this guitar, so the last step is to replace this tremolo. The stock tremolo that this came with is not terrible, but it does stick a little bit, and I had this tremolo system sitting around. I could put the chrome one on there, but it would look a little weird. It'd really stand out. They're both Jackson Floyd Rose licensed tremolo systems. So yeah, it's going to be a fake ESP with a Jackson Floyd Rose, but who cares? It should be a lot better. I'll show you when I take this one off that the block on the Jackson Floyd Rose is more substantial and the metal should be better. There are some pieces that are missing off of this tremolo that I'm going to have to pirate off of the Chinese one if I don't have the parts in my parts bin. So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is block this tremolo off so it won't fall off when I take the strings off of it. So I'm going to put a block underneath here, piece of cloth or something, and get the strings off the guitar, which means I've got to unlock the nut and remove the strings, get everything off the guitar first, and then we'll remove the tremolo system. Okay, so these guitars with Floyd Rose tremolos have springs underneath here that hold the tremolo taut when the strings are at tension, and it creates the action and the levelness of this bar. So the first thing we have to do is block this thing off, and there's other ways to do this. I just do it the simplistic way with a rag, a cloth. But if you take the strings off of a Floyd Rose equipped guitar without blocking this thing off, there's a likelihood that this bar will pop off the guitar and fly everywhere. It could damage the finish, whatever. So what I do is I put a little piece of cloth underneath the tremolo like that, and then we're set. At that point, I just cut the strings off the guitar. I mean, it's pretty much, you don't even have to really worry about unlocking the nut at this point, because you're going to just get the strings unsnapped or just cut like that, and then you undo the nut, loosen this up, take the strings all the way off the guitar, and then we'll be able to remove the tremolo system. So I'm going to take the strings completely off the guitar, loosen the locking nut, tighten these back down so I don't lose these parts. You want to make sure you always screw these back on tight, because if you lose these, then you got to buy new ones, and that sucks, because then you got to wait for them to come. A lot of places don't stock them. And anyway, so we got this blocked off, and going to get the strings out of this. Oh, and make sure that when you take the strings out of the saddles, when you undo the nuts back here, the bolts, tighten them back up so that these little blocks that are inside here stay intact, because if you lose these, that's really a pain in the butt too. All right, so we're going to take the strings off, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so now that this rag is under the Floyd Rose, I'm going to go ahead and take off the springs. Once I take these springs off the back of the Floyd Rose tremolo system, then we can easily remove the tremolo from the guitar itself. I will reuse these springs, and I'm going to reuse the claw since we're only going to replace the bar itself. All right, so it just falls off like that. All right, cool. So there's the old system. This is the Jackson model right here, and the block looks like this. And here is the back side of the Chinese model. Now they're really, really similar. This right here, I can tell is significantly heavier. So probably due to the block size, the block seems to be a little bit thicker. The metals in the Jackson one, even though this is a cheaper model, I can tell the metals in this are heavier weight. So hopefully improve sustain. This will slide right in, right there. And then we just have to put the springs on it. I am missing, I'm missing a couple of these little blocks that are in here. So I'm going to take them out of this model and stick in here. And then I'm going to take this piece, the tremolo bar, screw or bolt, whatever you want to call it, mounting bolt. I have to put it in there since I'm missing one here. So just missing these two little pieces there and that section, and that should be good. So what I'm going to do is replace these, put two of these little blocks inside the missing E and A string section there, and get that put on, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so real quick, this is what those little blocks look like when they come out of the tremolo system. So that's what they look like, and that's why I was saying you have to tighten these bolts down really good when you take the tremolo out of the guitar, or when you take the strings out, because if you flip the guitar upside down or do something, these little blocks come out, and then you're left with a tremolo like this where you're missing these little blocks. And usually you gotta buy these in sets, for about $10 or $12. But they're hard to find in local music shops, so you usually have to order them. And they go in vertically inside these squares, and then the locking nut screws tighten them down and keep them in place. I'm going to put them in there now. Okay, so now I have these blocks in place, and they're tightened down so they're not going to fall out. Now what I have to do is take the tremolo bar mounting screw or bracket, nut, whatever you want to call it, out of there. And to do that, there's an Allen wrench slot on the back side of this. And when you undo this, you got to be really careful if you drop it, you got to find it. And my kitten is on the ground below me, so he would probably undoubtedly steal it from me. So there, that's really simple. So what I'm going to do is take this piece. This is the Jackson piece. I'm going to poke that down in there. And then the piece that's got the Allen wrench nut on it will go right like that. And then tighten this thing up really good, because you don't want it coming loose later on down the road. That's always a pain. All right, so that is tightened down. All right, so very cool. One nice thing about these knockoff Floyd Rose is they use the same patent, like probably the same design, the CAD program or whatever. So these parts fit. It's just, it's really cheap. Now this Jackson feels a lot better. These screw holes and nuts here, or bolts, are perfectly in line, so that will go in place just fine. So this is going to fit. It's going to fit right down inside the cavity, just perfectly. All right. So one thing I just noticed probably going on with that other tremolo bar is it looks like it may be, well, no, I was going to say felt like it was almost scraping the body of the guitar right there, but I don't think it is. Man, it's ever so close. I mean, there's no room to move. They really did a good job carving this guitar out, like, cutting it, the CNC machines and sanding it. There's There is no room for, no margin of error. There's less than a millimeter of space. So, wow, cool. All right, so this gets a little tricky when you flip the guitar over like this. Then you've got to be able to put the springs back on the claw and on the tremolo system. And I'm not going to be able to do this probably very fluidly on camera because it's going to probably gonna do all kinds of weird stuff while I'm trying to film this, make me look like a fool. So what I'm probably going to wind up doing is loosening up the claw. What you can do is loosen up these claw screws and bring this claw forward so it's not as tight. But this is the action and everything on this thing is set up really good, so I really didn't want to mess with the claw and have to do a lot of setup work on it, but I think I'm not going to be able to avoid doing that. So what I'm going to do is unscrew the claw significantly here. So what this does, sorry if my arms are in the way, what this winds up doing is bringing this claw obviously closer to the block of the Floyd Rose tremolo, and you can get these springs in there better. Now, one thing that I just noticed is these little L-shaped brackets here, or hooks, really don't want to go inside this block very easily. So I got to angle it just right. It fits, they go in there. All right, so there we go. Gotta put this piece in first. I've got this claw so close to the tremolo now, these springs don't want to stay on the claw. So what I'm going to do is push these in here ever so carefully. And then I'm going to try to tighten up the claw on this guitar. There's a few ways you can do this. This is kind of a basic way, quick way to do it. All right, here we go. Let me tighten up this claw just a little bit. I loosened her up way too much. Okay, got that spring on there. Got this spring on that bracket. And got that spring loaded on there. What this wire is right here, for those that don't know, this wire is the ground wire that goes to one of the pots inside the guitar. So if you've ever got a tremendous amount of hum or something weird going on with your buzzing of your guitar, you can always check to make sure that solder point is good, because if it's not, that causes all kinds of issues. All right, so hopefully when I flip this thing over, it can be precarious. Hopefully this tremolo system hasn't flown off these bolts, because that's the risk. That's why I put that. That's why I put that cloth in here initially, because the tremolo can come off of these little bolts. So what I'm going to do, getting in the way of the camera here, I'm going to stick this rag underneath just to give it a little bit of tension. All right, cool. Take the whammy bar back off. All right, so now that that is secure, what that does is that puts a little extra tension on the back of the tremolo. Now what happened is I lost a spring in the process. This one came off. So I'm going to get this one back on. Okay, I've got the springs in place, and this claw is a little bit farther out than it was when I loosened it. Now, when you set up a Floyd Rose, the distance of the plate to this body, these screws, how far out they are, how close they are in, will increase or decrease the tension on these springs, which causes the bar to float at a specific height. I'm going to put 9 gauge strings on this. The lighter the gauge strings that you put on a guitar with a Floyd Rose, the less tension there is pulling the bar down. If you put heavier gauge strings, you got to tighten those springs up a lot more. So you just got to kind of play with it when you set it up. So what I'm going to do now is string the guitar up, and we'll see what the action looks like. So I'll do that real quick. All right, so the strings are on, and I've got it tuned close to, it's close to pitch, but the problem is I've got to set this thing up. It's not perfect. So what I'm looking at here, this tremolo is not flush with the body. The tremolo has to be flush even with the body. So to get that flush, the bar has to come down a little bit. So this bar has to come like this, right? So it'll be nice and even and flush, and the action will be just perfect. Right now the action, is okay. It's a little bit buzzy because it's the bar is pulled up just a little bit too high. So to get that in place and to get that exactly how you want it, now that it's tuned to standard, we have to loosen these screws up just a little bit on this claw. And what that does is that loosens up the tension what that's going to do is bring this bar up just a little bit, or bring it down I should say, so it's closer to the body and make it flush. Okay, what this is going to do also is make this guitar go out of tune. So when it goes, because we're moving the tension of the tremolo bar, so it's adjusting the string height a little bit, so it's going to be whacked out of tune like that. So now when we tune it, it's going to tension up the strings more when we tune it up to standard, because now they're flat. It's going to pull this bar even farther. So you kind of have to guess a little bit when you're doing these screws. Like, I got it a little bit better to being flush, but what I've got to do now is tune it up to pitch and see where it stands. So we'll tune it to pitch and we'll check it out. I may need to screw these in a little bit further too. All right, so this turned out really nice. This is as flush as I'm going to get it tonight. It's a little bit dipped down, a little bit lower than I normally would have it, but the action is really nice and I'm real happy with it. It's in tune and it feels really smooth. I mean it floats so much better. I could feel the old tremolo would it felt like it was scraping and really notchy. You can take a file and you can file out these edges on these tremolo systems. You can see where look how that's been worn out from just minimal wear and tear there on that left side. I mean, that's just cheap metal right there. But hopefully this other Floyd Rose is special. Won't wear out quite like that. But this was barely used. But it just was sticking and wouldn't go back in tune properly. And this is really nice and smooth. So I'm going to just double check the action on it one more time and then give it a test run. All right, so let's just do a little bit of a test and just see how smooth it is and if it stays in tune with a lot of aggressive whammy bar dips. Sounds really good, and now consider these are brand new strings, unstretched, but they are locked down. This whammy bar feels a whole lot better. Very nice. And it's intonated really nice. It was intonated before, evidently, from the guitar that it came off of. Awesome, I'm very happy. Really, really nice upgrade for this guitar. The last thing I'm gonna do is I've got one bad pot in this guitar, and I wanna put a nice three-way switch in here. This is a Chinese three-way switch, so once I get this one, the neck pickup pot is a little wonky, and this three-way switch, I want it to be a USA three-way switch, and we'll be ready to rock. I may put new tuners on it, but you know, these work just fine, so we'll see. Hope you like this kind of content. If you do, please consider subscribing. It helps me out a whole lot. Comment below, and as always, have a great day. Peace out.